Well, joining me in the studio to discuss the wider issues surrounding this story is Godson Azu, who is a chieftain of the PDP party. I beg your pardon there.
Thank you very much.
How dare I suggest that you're from the APC? You're from the PDP, of course, the party that ruled Nigeria for 16 years and now has been relegated to the opposition by the former opposition, the APC. Thank you very much indeed for joining us there. First of all, tell us how important these governorship elections are that are coming up tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I mean, tomorrow is going to decide the fate of the entire grassroots Nigerians. The election tomorrow is as much important as the presidential election because at the end of the day, we who have been following and observing the last 16 years of PDP government have always noticed that the greatest problem that faced the president has always been on how to manage the governors at each stage, even within his party and outside his party.
So that makes the stakes higher, doesn't it? Because he's got to be able to control in other words, he prefers it if they're from his
parties. And if they are from his parties, he has to have a very strong will to control the ability to over-influence his actions and his decisions. So he has always been a PDP problem, and I hope that when the APC comes into power, they'll be able to learn from the past, knowing very well that the APC is a mix of the many, who also are people who have one foot there and one foot here.
Well, as you mentioned there, it's common knowledge that the 36 state governors wield enormous power, and they preside over budgets that are absolutely enormous. In fact, Lagos, for example, the budget of Lagos is bigger than that of Kenya. So that makes the prize really, attractive, doesn't it?
It is, because as the chief executive of a state in Nigeria, managing a budget that is over $1 billion at any particular point in time of the year makes you a very, very key important person in Nigerian politics and the governance of the society as a whole. So you take the case of Lagos, like you said, take the case of River State, take the case of Akwa Ibom, and take the case of Kano, where you have the key economic and commercial nerves of Nigerian activities. You begin to look at how can we be able to have a real politically minded, people-minded, economically minded leader that will take each of these states forward from where they are at the very moment. Because one of the things that, one of the legacies that Jonathan is leaving behind with the state is the issue of making the states to become self-sufficient. Begin to look at what is the comparative advantage.
For sort of
rather than waiting for handouts from the state. Then he made the states now to begin to look at the economic values they have and begin to look at the comparative advantages in that economic values, whereby they can now begin to work on and begin to have self-sustained economy within the state, rather than waiting for all the budget from the state oil allocations and the derivation allocations before they can be able to decide.
Well, I
how
think
they can
either
pay.
government would want to see that happen, wouldn't they? I mean, PDP or APC would want to see some level of self-sufficiency, because then that would be able to deal with a lot of things like, unemployment and improve the fortunes of the people and so. But let's talk about Lagos, for example, is a very ethnically diverse city-state, and where the elections will be watched closely, not least because of those unholy comments made by the traditional king or Oba of Lagos against one of the largest Lagos-based ethnic groups, the Igbos.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what would have either spiritually or culturally or sentimentally led the Oba, who is supposed to be the traditional and spiritual head of the people of Lagos State, to come up and make a statement that becomes so sectional and becomes so incisive that could lead to the ordinary Lagosians having an engagement, a violent engagement with their neighbors with regards to that.
I think the key point, though, is are people dismissive of that statement, or are they taking it rather seriously as comments that could become quite toxic as the head of Nigeria's Human Rights Commission said it.
Yeah, of course, people are going to take it very toxic, because if you look, this is not the first time the Igbos in Lagos State have been put into that front challenge. Some couple of years ago, Governor Raji Fashola made a comment about repatriating some Igbos back to the east, and that inflated a lot of reactions. And after a while, people washed that away, and now comes back again. And one thing they have to understand is that looking at the political geometrics of Lagos State, with a population of 15 million people and over 7 million registered voters, you compare that to what happened at the presidential election, where you have less than 20% of that electoral power coming out to vote and participate in the election. So now you're looking at, is there going to be any reaction to that? Are people now going to come out en masse to vote against a statement made by the Oba? Or are people now going to sit down at home and say, look, I don't want to be part of what is going on. These people don't really regard who we are. They don't see us as anybody. Because if you look at the economic empowerment of Lagos State, it is hugely empowered by the marketability, the entrepreneurship of the Igbos in Lagos State, who command at least over 50% of the revenue generated, internal revenue generated in Lagos State comes from most of these young Igbo men, businessmen who invest a lot in Lagos State. And the respect and regard should be given to them, well, no matter whatever the circumstances may be.
This is a fascinating topic. We're hopefully going to have you back later in the program to talk more about this. But for the moment, Godson Azu from the People's Democratic Party here in the UK, the branch of the PDP in the UK. Thank you very much indeed. This week we reported from Nigeria that the Oba of Lagos made a threat to the Igbo ethnic group living in the country's commercial capital, warning that they should vote for governorship candidate Akinwumi Ambode of the All Progressives Congress in tomorrow's gubernatorial elections or perish inside water. He made the threats as he urged Igbos not to vote for the People's Democratic Party on April 11th governorship elections. The Oba of Lagos is one of the revered traditional monarchs in the country. Well, joining me once again to discuss this story is Godson Azu from the People's Democratic Party. He's a chieftain of that party here in London. Thank you very much indeed for sticking around, as it were. Do you think that statement has raised the stakes in Nigeria's elections tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it has raised the stake because that statement, I think, and from my own understanding, most non-indigenous in Lagos are taking it seriously into their hearts. And no matter what the politicians are trying to play political gimmicks around the statement to just die down the situation, people on the ground are really working hard to ensure that that statement bears its fruit. And some people are waiting to see how that fruit germinates and becomes an offensive fruit. Because personally myself, I grew up in Lagos. I was born in Lagos. I'm an Igbo guy. I went to school, my primary school in Lagos, my secondary school in Lagos, my high school in Lagos. I worked in Lagos. And I lived everything about me in Lagos. I was once the first deputy youth leader of the PDP in Lagos State. So I played a lot of politics. I played a lot of my politics in Lagos State. I have a lot of friends in Lagos State. Most of my friends are in Lagos State. Even the Oba himself, one of his sons used to be a schoolmate in secondary school. So for him to have made that statement gives a lot of discredit to his...
It's a hurtful statement.
It's a hurtful statement.
Well, let's move away from that. We'll see what impact it's going to have on those elections tomorrow. But historically, the two parties, the APC and the PDP, have established some level of electoral advantage, haven't they? With, the APC well in places like Lagos State and the PDP in Rivers. Yeah. And these are the two big ones, aren't they?
Yeah, these are the two big ones in terms of the fact that they control huge budgets.
Yeah. I mean, Lagos has the biggest economy, and Rivers produces the oil.
Gets the oil. So the issue is about who controls both sides of the state. You know very well. It will be a political marginal battle because you're looking at a safe seat of two of the incoming government, an incoming party in government, Lagos being being APC and Rivers State being a partial APC state because of the crossover of Amechi to APC. So you're looking at the PDP now having to do a big battle to be able to win back any of these two states, which is the key factor that the party will be looking at. Going by the dimensions of things happening in the past, we know very well that Lagos has been controlled and highly manipulated by the Tinubu key factor. And people are getting so fed up with this Tinubu key factor of controlling Lagos State. And before the Akiolu statement, most of the Lagosians were already getting fed up with how Tinubu has been controlling, single-handedly managing the affairs of Lagos State. And they were trying to see how they can get him to understand there's need for a change of battle.
Well, obviously you're speaking from the point of view of someone who's a member of the opposition. So that would, I mean, I'd understand that. But I just want to bring in Godson Azu, who is a journalist who you've seen many times on Africa Rap and one of our resident analysts here. Thank you very much indeed for coming in there. We're talking about those governorship elections in Lagos, I mean in Nigeria tomorrow. And of course, Lagos is a big place. Let's just take the broader political view. Would a split be better for Nigeria's democracy? In other words, if the APC controls the center and the presidency in Abuja, and the PDP took charge of the economic hubs of Lagos and Rivers, would that bode well for competitive economics and politics in Nigeria?
When you look at the constitution of Nigeria, it is difficult to see how that split in the governorship of the states will actually be better for Nigeria. Where it is actually better is within the legislative setup in Parliament. If there's a spread and there's strong opposition in Parliament where policies are made, that's fine. But when you're talking about the governorship, especially in Nigeria, they are running the states. And if you are running a state and you're opposing a federal government, it can become very tricky when it comes to allocation of resources, support, and some of the policies. Someone from the PDP might say, okay, I'm controlling River State. This is where the oil is, and I'm not going to cooperate with the federal government insofar as what oil should be doing for the entire economic policy of Nigeria. So it's very difficult. But I think I just wanted to say, listening to Godson and others of Nigerian origin that I've been speaking to, that the hope is that there's no violence tomorrow, there's no fraud, and the elections can continue with the spirit of what President Goodluck Jonathan brought after the election.
Well, hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit about that. But Godson, if the PDP, which is your party, fails to consolidate its political future in Lagos and Rivers, then essentially it would have lost an important lifeline and would end up, if you like, in political isolation, wouldn't it?
Well, if you want to argue that from the political minefield philosophy, I would say that is right. But in terms of the practicality of politics and in the reality of time, I mean, it doesn't. Any situation that comes in between that, either they lose. But one thing I know is that probability is that out of the two key states, PDP is going to have one. There's a probability that we'll have one. But in honesty, it will be difficult for PDP to get the two at the same time. But we are very sure that they will get one. But in the eventuality they lost both, I don't think that is going to send PDP to oblivion, because PDP is a party that was set on a very strong spiritual foundation. And there are people who feel that PDP is a party that is supposed to bring the democracy of Nigeria to a limelight, and that they've done.
Yeah,
and
but I mean, the fact is that a lot of people have left the PDP, so you've got a rump that's left over now.
No, I mean, you you may say a rump, but the fact is that the rumps are the real people who believe in the party.
Okay, well,
most of those who have moved are people who are flirting around, who are not keen.
We'll have to wait and see what the consequences of this move will be on the electoral fortunes of the party tomorrow. But Tam, you mentioned something about your concern, which I think is a legitimate one, on the potential for violence as we go into these elections. To what extent do you think that the broadly Northern and Southwestern APC alliance evokes rather unpleasant memories, given what we've heard happening with the Oba of Lagos against the Igbo. How do you think that alliance, does it evoke unpleasant memories in the Igbo southeast of the same sort of political configuration that led to the civil war in 1967?
It's a big worry. It's a big concern, but it's one I think that President-elect Buhari will be aware of. Especially, he should be aware of the risk that is there when you engage, especially the people within the River State and other guys in the south. And the Igbo, within the Nigerian context, when you look at the role that the Igbo people have played in the economics, you might find that most of the investments that are inward-looking in Nigeria are mostly led by Igbo people. And I think there's also a good record of a lot of ministers that were in President Goodluck Jonathan's government. And it is also common cause that President-elect Buhari wants to stretch out to other tribes to make sure that there is national involvement within the stake. So it's difficult to know, but I think if things are maintained, he's got a cool head. He knows the risks. He knows the people within these states, and I think he will use his networks and influence to maintain peace and order going forward. People have to feel that they've been included, and I think on the PDP, it can be an opportunity for them to have new faces and new challenges, and they can move forward.
Okay, Tamsanka Ju and Godson Azu, thank you very much indeed.